lot goes into signing an MS4 annual report. So the MS4 technician, Mr. Cray, and I will be working very closely in the months ahead to prepare that document so that it's ready for signature.
Okay.
So we have that. So another update, you have in your packet, we received a notice from for the Growing Greener grant that we were successfully awarded $45,000. Now there has been an update, so before we get upset that we didn't get the that we were shorted a significant amount of money because we were asking for $327,000. I was actually at a meeting last night with Michael Sala, and he actually went back and looked at that grant application and the response. And what he feels that DEP did was they funded the design phase of the project, which would be this year, and that there will be a separate grant application for the construction phase. So that's what he feels has occurred. I still am waiting for him to verify that because that would presents a hole of almost $280,000 in our stormwater budget for the next couple of years.
We'll get that in writing and notarized, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He and I went back last night. We looked at the response letter. Did not specifically say anything related to design, but $45,000 was the exact number for design and permit. So, and he said that he's seen a couple others where that was how he was interpreting it, even though he did not say that in our award letter. So we may, even though I was rather upset when I saw that award letter, it may not be quite as bad as we first thought. In fact, it may even be better because what he told me is if they fund the design, it's 100%, there's no local match. So it actually could be, turned out to be some very good news, not bad news. But the flip side is we still got to do another grant application, and we're still at the mercy. Do we get the $280,000 plus that's remaining for construction funded with a second grant or not?
But can we use this $45,000 for the
Design.
design? We can use it for that, and then that's covered.
He is speaking to DEP today to clarify what they were specifically meaning in that offer letter and what the intent of the waterway group is at this point. Plus, we're working with our MS4 technician, with Mr. McCrae, with some possible other grants. But the Growing Greener grant is the heavy, as the two of us were talking, is the heavyweight grant. And any other grants we would get would be to the tune of a $10,000, $20,000 grant. We're not going to get a grant of another $280,000 from other sources where we're going to really need the additional money to come from this grant program. Now, there are very few approved pollution reduction plans in South Central PA right now, so we still have a leg up on a number of other municipalities when we do a second grant application in the spring. So that's kind of an update on that. I know we've been waiting for months. It was supposed to come out in October, and we just received a letter now finally announcing what our grant award was going to be at this point. Now, on MS4 itself, I talked with each one of you individually, so this is not a surprise. But I am asking again for us to have a discussion about MS4 and how we fund it. Last October, I presented a budget on MS that included MS4. I presented a budget that paid for all of the activities of MS4. And at the time, I proposed an MS4 stormwater fee. And then in the course of the discussions of November, it flipped from a stormwater fee to a tax. And then at our last December 20th meeting, it rather quickly changed from a tax to nothing. And was at that point to utilize capital reserve to do basically fund MS4. I, at that time, went on the record disagreeing with the positions that were being presented, and I still disagree with the positions that were presented. That MS4 in any way, shape, or form can be deferred. The MS4 in any way, shape, or form can be ignored. that, and the comments made that, well, maybe we should work with our neighbors are valid comments that were made in public meetings and private meetings, but they cannot occur in this permit cycle. Next permit cycle, we can get together and are already talking with the Cocalico Watershed Group about going in as a group with our pollution reduction plan. DEP did not have that stuff in place when we did our current pollution reduction plan. Subsequently, they have now put that in place, but it's too late. There are no municipalities that are now going with a regional plan because everybody has a plan they need executed and they're all on a tight timeline. If we do not do the work that's in that pollution reduction plan, this township will get a fine from EPA. I don't know how to be more specific at this point.
What's the fine amount?
Banner Township received a fine that started off in excess of $100,000 when they were fined a couple years ago. And I do not know what the final settlement was that occurred. But they did end up having a settlement, and then they ended up having to still completely implement the MS4 program. I have to report on that annual report that we are complying with the pollution reduction plan. I will not sign an annual report if we're not complying with that pollution reduction plan at this point. I am concerned about those rumors. I disagree with them. I formally disagree with the position that the board took. I don't mean to come across hard, but I did warn you guys I was going to have this discussion. And I am asking for reconsideration of this MS4 program. One, acknowledgement that it can't go away, we can't ignore it, we can't defer it, we can't do other things that were talked about in the business community. And two, it's going to get more expensive than what our capital reserve can fund at this point. It is going to quickly burn through what we got left for capital reserve, and it's still going to be an expense after capital reserve is fully gone at this point. So I would like to have a second discussion. It's too late now to talk about a stormwater tax, but we can have a discussion about a stormwater fee at this point. It would take months to have a discussion about a stormwater fee. It's not something that has to occur now, but I'm asking for that. They restart the discussion with a stormwater fee. I have already instructed Land Studies and Becker Engineering to give me a concrete number on the pollution reduction plan. All the items in the pollution reduction plan, not just our biggest item, which was Greenstown Park and the stream restoration project there, but all the items, including the restoration project we have for the Muddy Creek off of Stone Hill Road. I'm not going to put our soon-to-be employee, Mr. McRae, on the spot, but this stuff's not going away. And the regulations are not going to get easier, and they're not being made up by the township manager. They're not being made up by Becker Engineering or Land Studies. The plan was approved from DEP. We fought with DEP when DEP tried to put more into that plan. As you guys recall, they tried to double our workload, and we pushed back by threatening appeal. This stuff is real. And I'm just requesting a revisit at this point on MS4 and the stormwater fee. I don't need to have an active response from the board today. And I'm making you aware of what I'm doing, and I've made you aware of my concerns at this point, and the messages that I've heard.
All right, let me respond to this one, Scott. First, your concern and your comments are noted, and I fully acknowledge them. You were kind enough to send us a formal letter outlining in detail relative to the budget, your concerns and your comments, and I acknowledge them. I also sent you a formal letter of which the board was on copy with my position on the matter. My position on the matter is the same as it was in the document, which is the same as it was when I voted for no funding for MS4. Okay? Number one is I appreciate your parallel contingent working on MS4. I think it's the fiduciarily responsible thing to do for the township. Okay? I will say publicly and make it very clear, I announced it when we did the budget forecast for 2019, and I'll say it again. I chose to accept the subject matter expert as he presented himself, PCI, PA Certified Inspector's opinion that I heard from multiple business owners via multiple conversations, via multiple emails, via multiple phone calls, that MS4 can be deferred, delayed, or even eliminated. I respect what you're saying, but I'm respectfully pushing back on you. I have to make a decision. I'm accepting PCI's interpretation of what can be done. That's how I made my decision. That's how I voted on the budget. Just so we're clear, we were in the positive roughly $33,000 on our budget for 2019.
The original budget, yes.
The original budget. The MS4 calculation required roughly $151,800.
151 plus about 6,000 for collection fees, yes.
Correct. Okay. We don't have to use the 151 and change plus the 6 out of the general reserve. We don't have to take it out of the bank account. If MS4 can be delayed and it can be eliminated. And I believe, Doug, I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I think you, Alan, we all voted the same way. So I hear what you're saying, and I agree with and concur with we have to be financially responsible, and we have to run a parallel plan with an MS4 technician, and we have to run a parallel plan in a contingent manner, just in case it can't be delayed or deferred, or it can't be eliminated, which is what was promised. Okay? So we don't get minimum of $100,000 in fines. Okay? So I think what this board needs to do is I want to make a motion, and I think what this board needs to do is PCI, PA Certified Inspectors Incorporated, was the ones that came forward with the plan and sold me, sold Alan, sold Doug, sold our business community on the fact that these MS4 can be delayed, deferred, or eliminated. PCI, we have a financial responsibility to this township. It's affecting the bank account, the general fund balance daily. They need to come to us immediately with that plan of how to defer it or delay it. And I think every taxpayer in this community should be demanding that. That has to be done immediately. Because there's a minimum of $100,000 in fines out there. There's a minimum of $152,000 in the bank account that we're going to be using. And I think our responsibility at this point is we made a decision. We now have to justify and execute on that decision. And the execution is someone presented themselves as a subject matter expert. They have to bring forth this plan immediately. That's my opinion. I can't make it any clearer than that.
Well, I went on record as saying I was probably the naysayer of the group when it started, because sitting in on those business meetings, the one I only sat in on one, and that happened to be the second one. And it was quite clear that people that were at that meeting had formed an opinion that, as you stated, Romeo, this is not needed, it can be delayed, it can be pushed back. So I came to our meeting after the fact and said, I'm not voting for this because I think we need to walk. I think if you go back and look at the YouTube, it'll say, Doug said, we need to walk before we can run, we're going at this too fast. And that comment was based on not only the letter from PCI, but sitting in on a meeting which you were there, I was there, and Scott was there, and probably 5 or 6 other people. I remember people from the school board were there, and a couple business people. So my whole comment was based on that fact. So, we were told this can be delayed. Okay, tell us how to do it. Show us that it can be delayed. Again, more fake news.
So the board, we authorized him to keep working forward and getting prices for us. We may have to set a fee this year yet, right, Scott? Is that what you're saying?
I think my position is very clear at this point.
Okay. And we need a report from PCI to justify us not doing what you said.
I'm pretty confident on my position, but I will entertain what the board instructs me to do.
What's the wish of the board?
Mayo made a motion.
I made a motion that PCI must immediately, time is of the essence, present us with a detailed plan on how to delay, defer, or I would prefer with the other one that we heard, which is eliminate MS4. And that must be presented to Scott immediately. The other part of that motion that I would like is, I think this is such a critical issue, we absolutely need, at a minimum, a personal presentation at every single township meeting as to the status of that elimination or delay. Because that's also going to have an effect on what our MS4 technician is going to be doing.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. Fry, if I might have the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
I was also at the second meeting that your colleague referred to. And I am not a spokesman for that business person's group, let me say that at the start. But there was a lot of questions with the group about, obviously, a new tax being installed. It was a consensus of the people there that more information wanted to be presented to the business community. And the decision was made to invite Scott Russell to come and present the facts as he knows them. And, you know, from my perspective only, there was a lot of questions out there in the community. Nobody, whenever you want to install a new tax, a new fee, everybody wants to know why. They want to know all the details, obviously. And, you know, not everybody comes to these meetings has this personal connection. There was, you take one step further back when Mr. Luongo had the first meeting, township-sponsored meeting, focus group meeting. There was a lot of questions that day about where do we go forward. And I think from the business person's perspective, there's been no follow-up to that meeting as of yet. And that was part of the intent was to get Mr. Russell out there from the business owners meeting to put more information out there. And if other people there had more of an agenda than that, I don't know. But that was my perception of what I saw going on. So just for the record from what I saw.
Well, it was called a focus group meeting, and that was explained when the thing was formed, that it's to gather information, period. There should have not been any promise made by anyone that there would be a follow-up meeting. That was not the intent. That's not the intent of a focus group.
That's correct.
All right.
But to that point, Mr. Luongo, was that heard from many parts of the room that they enjoyed the contact from yourself that day? They were looking for more information, more feedback. They wanted future meetings. Was that your perception?
That was, but there was no promise of any future.
Correct. There was no promise, but it was there.
It was.
Well, and I understand what you're saying, but I got a call from a businessman who did not attend one of those meetings. did not attend either one of them. And I said, now wait a minute. What do you want me to do as a supervisor? Do you want me to come out and take your hand out and lead you and go door to door to every business in the township and say, hey, this is what we're gonna do, blah, 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 blah. You do know we hold advertised township meetings. They're advertised a year ahead of time, so you have no excuse not to fill it out on your calendar if you're interested. Number two, we have a newsletter which goes out quarterly. And number three, we have a website which you can avail yourself of. If you don't do that, shame on you. There's nothing I can do as a supervisor. I can take you to the water hole, but I can't make you drink the water. And for a business owner to tell me that it's my responsibility, I look them in the eye and say, no, you're wrong. It's your responsibility. You're a business owner. You have invested right in this township, and you ought to make yourself available to come in here and scream at us and holler at us when you don't like what we're doing. Don't blame it on me because I don't hold a second or third meeting that you think I ought to do. That's bull. And I told that guy that over the phone. He said, well, yeah, you're right.
I completely agree. I see that out there too. In today's world, you know, everybody wants
Everybody has a solution, everybody has a complaint, but they don't have a solution to the problem.
I can't disagree with that. You know, I think it's a reflection of today's world more than anything else. So
I think, Mr. Mitchell, I think we're getting off topic here, quite frankly.
yeah.
We're totally off topic. Was it a focus group meeting? Wasn't it a focus group meeting? Since you bring that up, let's discuss it in detail. The township authorized, condoned, supported a focus group meeting. The purpose of a focus group meeting is to gather data, intelligence, feedback on improvements, facilitating items, you name it. Mr. Luongo spearheaded that meeting under the direction of this board. He spearheaded that meeting and he was the moderator of that meeting, period. The letters are all here from PCI. If you're bringing that up, we have to discuss this. An October 29th letter from PCI, not sanctioned by East Cocalico Township. When? November 14th, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Meeting goals. Discuss issues related to the township and explore creating Cocalico Business Association to address the issues. Not sanctioned by the township. However, from my feedback, that meeting was attended in such a way that it was implied it was fully sanctioned by the township. It was not. Second letter from PCI. November 24th, 2018. Quote, East Cocalico Board of Supervisors. This is after we spoke with PCI and we documented with PCI formally and legally that PCI, we had heard there was a representation at the first meeting in which PCI moderated, ran the meeting, and implied that they had full authority from the township. After a letter and after comments from the board and from the township manager on November 24th, PCI Inspectors Inc., signed by Skip Cross, stated, quote, recently there has been some concern over my involvement in the creation of a Cocalico Area Business Association. Particularly, will I be part of the administration of this organization? The answer is no. I am fully aware that the, quote, conflict of interest, end quote, could be perceived if I were to be part of the rules and decision process for any business group within the township. Please accept this letter as proof that I fully understand your concerns and will not now or in the future be part of any, quote, board or, quote, committee of any organized group within the township of East Cocalico. Thank you, Skip Cross. November 24th. Then a letter goes out for the next meeting, for December 4th, from Skip Cross, PCI. I apologize for the short quote. Friends, I apologize for the short notice, but time is not on our side. The next East Cocalico Supervisors meeting is Thursday, December 6th of December. They will be discussing the budget and new taxes. We should be ready to have our voice heard that night, period. Most of us have expressed an understanding of the need to increase township revenues. However, we all need more information and time before endorsing the budget as presented. Endorsing the budget as presented. That's just a quick summary of the letter. The messaging was clear. I'm sorry. PCI presented itself as a subject matter expert in MS4. I have a fiduciary responsibility to these taxpayers. And that is, there's $152,000, thank you for the extra $6,000. There's $152,000 out there in the bank account that does not need to be used the minute MS4 is eliminated. Part of my fiduciary responsibility is to make sure we have a backup plan. That backup plan is clearly there. That is being done in parallel. We need an answer. We need a clear-cut answer on whether this can be delayed or eliminated. And we need a plan. So I appreciate your comments, but those comments have nothing to do with the fundamental issue at hand. Is a decision was made for the 2019 budget not to fund MS4. We have to figure out how we're not going to fund it.
We have a motion and a second on the floor.
I'll make a motion.
Will you do
make
a motion? Sorry.
Hey, can I ask you a question quick?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
With the MS4, you can't defer it, you can't eliminate it. I'm just, if you can, you said about possibly doing a stormwater tax.
Or a fee. We could do a tax now.
Okay, a stormwater fee. Where does that fee go in our spring tax, in the water and sewer bill?
That would be, that'd be a 4-month process so you can figure out how we set the fee up. And more than likely, if it were to occur, it'd be a fall at this point. Just because of the timing. It takes, you have steps that the state requires to put a stormwater fee together. You have to follow step by step. And if you don't follow step by step, then the fee can be legally challenged.
And if you try to defer this or eliminate it, how long do you have yet until your deadline is?
It's a 5-year permit. We're in year 1 of a 5-year permit.
Fundamentally, those are our township engineers' opinions. And I have a different opinion from a different person who presented themselves as a subject matter expert. There are competing opinions. I don't know yet. I need to see a plan of whether this can be deferred or eliminated. I prefer eliminated. So it's hard for me to answer your question because I just don't know right now. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question as a citizen and not as the chief of police?
Yeah.
I'm a taxpaying citizen in East Cocalico Township. After hearing this, my question is, why is the building inspector, who could potentially be, how is this not, this is an ethical question. He could potentially be doing inspections of the businesses of the meeting that he held. There's an ethical question.
We may have touched on it.
We just touched on
You're
that
right,
before.
Bob, you're right.
We did, yeah.
That's the letter that went out.
I have a question. How are you going to make him give you an answer to that? Aren't you saying please?
No, I'm asking, I'm giving them the action item to provide us with an answer. He doesn't have to do that.
Then,
That's why we have a contingency plan in place.
Yeah.
And then we'll look at what other ramifications there will be. because there are financial ramifications that have occurred.
Major.
I would hold him hostage on that if he can't give you an answer to something he specifically had in writing before that you based your decisions on.
There's a financial impact, yes.
Any other questions or comments?
You didn't vote yet.
I know, we didn't vote yet.
Getting there.
Chance?
From an outsider's point of view, PCI is who?
Third-party contractor.
Okay. Does PCI stand for anything, or?
PA certified inspectors
Okay.
in Wernersville, Pennsylvania. Actually, I'm sorry, let me answer that formally. PA Certified Inspectors Incorporated, 95 120 Old Pool Road, Wernersville, PA.
Okay, any other first questions? Okay, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Can we move on to the next thing? Fire EMS standing discussions.
So Chair, I'm putting this on from this point forward as a standing discussion item until I'm told to take it back off the agenda at this point. This is primarily focused right now on EMS. We have been having, as you know, and you've actually, Chairman, participated in a couple of the meetings, the other two have not. We've been having a number of meetings at this point with EMS, with Wellspan, with Reamstown, with some other friendly EMS companies that are looking to work with Reamstown to assist them with volunteer numbers. We have an issue with EMS. And I had asked Mr. Scott Aki to meet with Mr. O'Neill, which he did. You have budgeted money in the budget for this year for EMS. I think Scott has made the case about how much money he is bleeding at this point with his EMS and Reamstown EMS at this point. I do think, my personal opinion now is it would be good for Scott to come in the next meeting and actually lay out the financial numbers ad nauseum at this point so that we can see. It's documented, PSAS has been documenting there's an EMS crisis at this point. LEMSA and others have been going to the county and the county groups documenting that there is a crisis at this point with EMS. It's not just left to our local, it's county-wide at this point.
State.
Where everybody in this county, at least
Yeah.
I want you to speak for state right now.
No,
From
I
a Lancaster County perspective, every one of the EMSs, to a greater or lesser extent, is bleeding money, except for the very few that are still 100% volunteer based. But the moment you start going to paid drivers, the reimbursements do not keep up with the cost of doing business. Like I said, LEMSA went in the red last year, as I understand it. So it's not just Reamstown EMS, it's the largest EMS provider in the county. It's having similar issues to what our Reamstown EMS is doing. I asked Scott to meet with you guys because I did have the perception among the board that maybe we would not have to spend some of the money that was budgeted at this point. I think we need to have a discussion about that in the ongoing months because I do think that that money is going to have to be spent. And it's not helping Reamstown Fire Company's budget. It is helping Reamstown EMS stay afloat with a balanced budget. But I think that would be good to have Scott come into a future meeting as soon as possible and present some of the numbers that he presented to you and I, Alan, in December, and then present to the other two board members when he met with them one-on-one over the last couple of weeks. That we do have a problem, we need to talk about, we need to acknowledge it. There are things that are occurring right now. I think he's doing good things at this point to try and address issues at this point. And I think we just need to have this on the table as a discussion going forward about how we are going to address EMS. Township is required to provide basic life saving service, BL services, in this township. If it's not Reamstown EMS, it has to be somebody else. And if the other ones are already financially having tough times too, it's not simple to just say we're gonna make Reinhold's cover East Cocalico Township. Because that means they would have to add 2 more paid drivers, and then they're in the exact same position that Reamstown EMS is in financially at this point, when they go from 2 paid drivers to 4 paid drivers.
Let me add to that. I think what we need to do is, I don't know if our fire departments have seen this or the public's seen this. When we get, that's what I was just asking Lisa, when we get Township News magazine, it was, I found it in my office. The September 2018 issue of the Township News magazine, PSAT's magazine, actually had on the front cover, and it's almost a third of the magazine is covered, the coverage is towards, I'm going to go from memory now, but it's basically EMS in crisis. So they're actually, to Doug's point, they're actually referring to it across the state. But it's significant enough. It's in the Township News magazine from PSATs, and they covered a substantial portion of that issue. I'll bring it in, and I think we should make copies if people are interested in seeing it.
Just as a reminder of the board, I do sit on PSAT's executive board. And so, I mean, I sit on our statewide governing board of township supervisors. And I can tell you that their top 2 issues for PSATs, and in no particular order, is public safety, fire, and EMS, and the heroin epidemic. Those are the 2 things that PSATs has considered to be a community statewide crisis at this point level of it. Our former president of PSATs, in fact, half the people on PSAT's executive board are either fire chiefs or they participate in a fire company. I'm one of the few that doesn't actually physically participate in a fire company at this point. It is a real issue. It really, at this point, just if it's PSAT's top issue, it really, I'll be honest with you, needs to be a standing item for the Board of Supervisors. EMS, as well as down the road for fire. Fire is not in the same shape as EMS is right now, but they will get there at some point.
I don't know about that.
It's a very slippery road.
I know. And but I think that's why we need to have some discussion.
I think the fire companies are worse off than what you realize. We've dropped from 300,000 volunteers down to 75,000. We just deal with it. I mean, we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So,
So I would encourage us to get this forming as a regular agenda.
Yes.
They deserve for it to be an elevated topic for the township going forward. We are going to have to, in the future, look at funding levels. The township's going to have to step up and start increasing funding levels, not just to EMS, but to the 3 fire companies too. And I don't think Chad and Mr. Weaver will disagree with that one iota at this point. We cannot have them spending as much time doing volunteer fundraising when they have to be responding to calls and all the training that they got.
yeah, and I think you'll see that come in the next month. There, I think we'll be providing you with reports from each of us. And we followed ours this year. There's I think 4,000 man hours invested this year in our fire department as one of the smaller ones. So I think you'll find there's 10,000 or 15,000 hours wrapped up between all of us, between fundraising, training, and running fire calls.
And that training is all, none of it's paid for by the Commonwealth.
The Relief Association picks up the tab on that.
Right.
So that's who pays for the training.
But it will get to the point where the township has been blessed. The fire companies have done a very good job of being very cost effective and very frugal. All 3 of them have done that. They've done a very good job with fundraising in past years. They work well together, which I can't say that occurs in other areas of the county. You do not have 3 fire companies. Yes, they have the usual spats that you would expect to occur.
Outside of business we do, but once it's time for business, it is also.
I go around, and even in my own Hempfield area, I boast about how well the 3 fire companies here work together with one another. They might have a bruise it out session, but the next day they're drinking a beer together. And that's all I could ask for from our 3 fire companies.
We're very fortunate.
We need to elevate this. In 2019, it has been, the EMS crisis has caused us to make this an agenda item, but overall, public safety services provided by our volunteers needs to be a focus of the township and a standing focus going forward. And when we get into the 2020 budget, I think we're going to have some additional discussions about funding levels.
Well, I just want to say, I want to make two comments, just to be clear about things. Yeah, we put, correct me if I'm wrong, $96,000 in our budget for EMS, correct? We have not spent a penny of that yet, just so everybody's clear on that. That's another rumor out there, one of them rumors that I said earlier, people going around spreading rumors that somebody's getting an unfair advantage over another outfit. I can tell you right now, I signed the checks. I didn't spend a dime, I didn't spend a penny of that $96,000. So I want to put that on public record, and it's on the cloud now, so everybody in the world will know that.
It's in the cloud.
The second thing is, and Scott touched on it, and I haven't said anything to my two compadres up here, but I want to think about, we talked about funding. I want to think about some additional ways to help our 3 fire companies and their volunteers. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm not putting numbers out. I want to sit down and talk with them one-on-one. And hopefully we can come up with something that, hey, I'd love to hand each one of you a check for $500,000 and say, you know what, we know, but I can't, and you know that. But we're going to work on increasing the funding one way, shape, or form, because it's a requirement. It's a requirement as a township supervisor, you must provide safety services. It's not a choice, you don't have a choice, and it's a good requirement.
And Mr. Macker, just to clarify, as your sunshine law advisor, you're not going to actually have what conversations
I know
with the...
I know that, but just in case there's another rumor floating around out there, you know.
Say something.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have to apologize, I have a pre-planned meeting
Oh,
scheduled at 11, I have to prepare for it.
okay.
So please excuse
Well,
me.
have fun.
All right, always.
Yeah. Probably got some good ideas here, huh?
Okay. So, Mr. Russell, what I was hearing from you about the EMS, all alternative avenues have been exhausted.
Not necessarily.
Jamestown, or?
No, but it's not going to happen overnight. And I, due to the sensitivity of what the discussions are with another EMS, I really can't reveal what has occurred there, but there is some willingness to, I wouldn't say the word regionalized, but there is some willingness to share services and help out with some volunteerism and maybe even loan some volunteers to Reamstown EMS at this point at critical times to reduce the amount of overtime that's being caused right now with the 4 paid drivers with the hours we're putting in. So the goal is right now to get help with another EMS to just reduce the amount of hours that are going to 4 paid drivers.
And has Wellspan or any of the other hospital systems been any assistance in?
Wellspan is in its own EMS crisis right now. They are losing money right now with ALS service and the services they are providing. And that's pretty much anybody that provides ambulance services right now is losing money.
The reimbursement are just not there either.
Even and that, in fact, I don't even want to talk, that'd be a good presentation at this point. Scott Hockey actually has what the expenses are and then what he actually gets reimbursed for, and all the EMSs use the same collection company. So it's not like it's the collection company not doing their job.
They're not taking much out of it either, I know that.
No.
They're-
So that'd be a good future presentation, but we can actually show what the actual real expenses are and then what the reimbursements are and how much over the last couple of years Reamstown Fire Company has subsidized Reamstown EMS that has been running in the red.
Scott, one of the issues that we ran into a number of years ago is we had an investigation where somebody was calling for an ambulance, and then the insurance company was paying the people, not the ambulance company. and I know that's a big issue, is PSATs,
That's a PSAT position for direct payment, and that's being taken up in the House right now.
because we can't go, or the ambulance companies aren't coming to us every time somebody doesn't pay as a criminal matter. And it would get very expensive if they go to a collection agency every time. So if an insurance company is giving the person $400 and they're not reimbursing the ambulance or EMS suffers tremendously.
It's actually a pretty common scam that someone will request ambulance service, will get a ride to the hospital, not get admitted, get a check from the insurance company, and then pocket it. As we were aware, that's one of the things that you get policed on. But that is actually a very common thing. The House is taking up legislation to fix that at this point. There's a couple fixes that they're considering, but it's not enough right now. That's what's coming from the state.
Well, and the other part of it is the reimbursement rate hasn't been changed for years from the state.
The state and the federal Medicare, Medicaid do not covering costs of doing business at this point. So neither one of those do too. But, so there are some things the state's looking to do that will help, but it's not completely getting us there. What's going to realistically occur, EMS is pretty much a paid service in other parts of the country. We're one of the last areas in the country that have kind of like a hodgepodge system for EMS, mix of volunteers, paid, and basically, you know, some places have almost a county-wide, some places like here just have a couple big ones with a bunch of small ones that run EMS in the county here. But what's going to happen, the trend is going to be is over time, again, I wouldn't call this an unfunded mandate because second-class townships have provided public safety and services, but the costs are just going to go up. I mean, because it's not like these EMS drivers, these EMTs are getting a big salary. So even where you got paid drivers, there's a shortage. Whenever you lose a driver, lose an EMT, lose a paramedic, there's not another person that you got immediately coming in to fill the position. The hours are terrible and the salaries they make are really below par. So the market's going to correct itself. There's going to be a shortage of paid. You have to increase salaries. They increase salaries. Somehow it's got to get paid, and the reimbursements are not going to keep up with the increase in salaries.
I just wanted to add something you had said, Scott. Somebody asked a question, I don't remember who it was, but the department, the organizations we're talking to right now have asked us at this point in time to keep it confidential, so we're trying to honor that. We're trying to respect that request, so that's why we can't give out more of that information.
Chief, what was the end result of the investigation?
Well, it was numerous times, and the individual that did it was arrested and charged by us. And they were, I guess through the restitution program, it was paid back over a long period of time. But that was the one case that I'm aware of in many places, and it was just the amount. That's why they came to the police department. But if they're going on, on a call that would get them $400 and they're not receiving anything, they just provide a free service and everybody suffers.
Want to move on to manager's report?
I don't have a written report, but I do want to update you on two things at this point. Last week, the pension working group did meet to cover first quarter. And I do want to express actually some good news that came out of that meeting. And I apologize I did not present that information yet to the two of you. Obviously, RC, as sitting on the pension working group, has the information that I'm going to summarize in just a couple sentences. When you last fall authorized the purchase of annuities with principal to move our retirees out of our pension program, if you recall, we rushed that through. Unbeknownst to us, we didn't know a market correction was going to occur. Okay? A market correction of down to 9/11 type proportions where the market dropped a couple thousand points in the course of a couple days. We sold high.
We benefited greatly.
Yeah.
We sold off half our pension when the market was
that was
high.
skill.
So while it still hit the rest of what was left in our pension fund, we sold those annuities off at a market high. If we had delayed that by just 1 month, we would not be able to do what we did because it would have been too big a financial hit. We would have to, so you call it dumb luck, you can't predict the market. I was not predicting that there was going to be that type of a correction occurring, and we still haven't dug out of that correction yet. But the fact of the matter is, we sold off half our pension program at a market high. We did have a dip financially, and roughly we're about $150,000 off of where we would be if there was no market correction at all with our pension program. So looking at October numbers versus looking at January numbers, we're $150,000 off. I guarantee you that most of the pension programs across the state are looking at 2, 3, 4 times that number because they didn't liquidate half their pension at a market high. So we are going to take an MMO hit because it gets calculated at December, end of December 2018, and there was a big market correction that occurred at that point. But the hit is going to be a lot less than what it could have been, just primarily due to some dumb luck, but also due to how quickly the board turned around and followed what Univest said, which was, this is a good deal, you need to take it right now, and you trust Univest and it paid off. So that I wanted to give an update on that was some good news. I apologize, I did not forward that information yet to the other 2 board members. I will get that in the packet, and you can see the numbers to verify what I'm saying. Second thing,
Scott, if I may, what's the current allocation there the principal still has versus what Univest has?
Principal has just over 6 million, and we have just under 6 million.
So
It's almost 50-50. Realistic, it's like 47, 53, something like that.
They're sitting on 6.4.
Yeah.
So they gave up, their principal gave up their portion with no penalties to move that on that?
On the police side, no, there's no penalties. Now, on the non-uniform side, we're still working over some issues with that. But no, it was a straight buyout of annuity program. All we had to do was just pay the program at this point. And so the officers, they're there now, each have an individual guaranteed annuity for their retirement plans, so it didn't impact the existing officers at all. And we don't have any future MMO calculations related to that. So a market correction that will probably occur, that'll probably be worse than what we had in December in the next year or 2. We're not on the hook for that $6 million.
But it's the remainder the principal has that will be...
Well, the remainder now is Univest. Principal we have no affiliation with Principal.
Okay.
We're done. So right now, we're sitting on, just off the top of my head, about $5,750,000, give or take, of monies that are for the current employees and our 2 retirees that have some issues where they were not part of what Principal had with the defined benefits program. So those employees, those 2 retirees plus our current police officers are represented by that $5.7 million. The annuity was actually buyout was actually $6.3 million. That was what was bought out by Principal. They gave us a number that the board approved, which was 6.4, and they came back and said, we'll take it for 6.3. So since it was less than what the board approved the transfer went through, and the township actually had an extra $100,000 in the pocket for this number.
I want to mention Gerard, just because of...
If you want to.
Yeah. The other thing too is you might see in some of the paperwork, you're going to see the name Gerard. The only reason that is because Univest just went through a marketing rebranding. Because as they're growing and looking to move across the country, apparently Gerard allows them to market better than municipalities. So we're discussing Univest now. It's probably going to migrate to Gerard. And that's the only difference.
Just a rebranding.
It's just a rebranding. There's no change in contracts. There's no changes in anything at all.
So I thought that was good news. It's not too often. I tried to sell high and I missed time with December corrections. I was joking with RC and the Federal Work Group, but when we had Univest there, I told them that I've been sitting in a number of their quarterly meetings every year, so I always take copious notes, and I usually look at my investment plan after every single one of their meetings, and
See where
a
you're
lot of
at.
times to make adjustments to my own plan, and I'm already down making some additional adjustments to my own plan. Second thing is Burke's Homes and the township and myself, Brent Lee, and our attorneys are meeting on February 14th to go over the settlement agreement with Lexon and to confirm quantities. There's probably going to still be one additional step. I would like to actually get Able out on site, because they're going to be the contractor to do the work and physically mark out again the improvements that need to occur to match the agreement. Once that step is done, then the board will have an agreement before you to take action on it, and it will anticipate that to be spring work. And we can finally close this one out.
Finally.
So that's my two updates from the manager's report.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Any questions of the manager? Any public comment? I have announcements. We had 2 executive sessions. We had one February 1st, 8:30 to 10:30. It was contractual and personnel related. And then February 4th, we had an executive session from 9 to 11, which was contractual and personnel related. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, who's Johnny?
Ken,
Can I have your name? You
If I
spoke,
could see you afterwards, we can talk about
spoke
that.
at the meeting.
My name's
Troy? Troy what?
Young.
Okay.
Hey,
Can I
John?
talk